Hey, what's up? It's time to do A Course in Miracles lesson 300. 300. Could you believe that? We're up to 300. Only an instant does this world endure. Only an instant does this world endure. Lesson 300. Only an instant does this world endure. What does that mean? Well, the Course says the world is false perception. Remember, A Course in Miracles has its own interpretations and definitions for the terms that it uses. So it's in one of its definitions of world is false perception. So only an instant does this false perception of what? Fear last. Only an instant does a false perception of fear last. A false perception of fear lasts an instant. A false perception of fear lasts only an instant. Does a false perception of fear endure? Isn't that beautiful? Only an instant does this world endure. Just means only an instant does this false perception of fear endure. This is a thought which can be used to say, do you know that what I'm covering with you is a thought that can be used to say that death and sorrow are the certain lot of all who come here. Let's face it, everybody who comes here experiences some form of death, be it them or someone else, or they seem to experience some kind of sorrow about something. So it just seems like just by coming here, you experience sorrow and learn about death. For it looks like in this world sometimes that our joys are gone before they are possessed or even grasped. Yet this is also the idea that lets no false perception keep us in its hold. Only an instant does this world endure. Keep that in mind, because it lets no false perception keep you in its hold, nor represent more than a passing cloud upon a sky eternally serene. And it is a totally serene reality and serenity we seek, unclouded, obvious, and sure today. Are you ready to have serenity? Are you ready to have serenity today? Are you willing to have serenity today? We seek your holy world today means, God, we seek your innocent world today. For we, your loving sons, we, your loving creations, have lost our way a while. I'm sorry, we kind of lost our way a while, God, Creator, I think we kind of lost our way a while, but we've listened to your voice. I know we lost our way, but we are now listening to your voice, God. We're listening to your Holy Spirit, and we have learned exactly what to do. We've learned exactly what to do to be restored in heaven, which is in love. We know exactly what to be. We know exactly what to do to be restored in perfect love and joy, which is heaven. And heaven is defined as our true identity. The Course actually, do you know that the Course actually calls our true identity heaven? And we give thanks today. We give thanks today. We give thanks right now. We give thanks. We do. I'm thankful right now. You are thankful. We give thanks today. The world, the false perception, the world, the false perception of fear. We're thankful that it only lasts an instant. I'm glad that false perceptions of fear only last an instant. Aren't you glad that false perceptions of fear only last an instant? Aren't you glad that false perceptions of fear, the world, only last an instant? We would go beyond that tiny instant of fear to eternity. Do you know that we are ready? Are you ready to go beyond that little tiny instant of fear to eternal love? Yes. Let's admit it. We're ready to go past that little tiny instant of fear to eternal love. We're ready to go past a little tiny instance of upset or anger or depression. We're willing to go past any form of ego right now to eternity in love. So only an instant does this world endure. Only an instant does this false perception endure. Only an instant does this false perception endure. Only an instant does the false perception endure. A false perception of fear, it only lasts an instant. That false perception of fear you may be having only lasts an instant. Only an instant does this world endure means only an instant does fear endure. Only an instant does fear last. Do you know that only an instant does fear last? Only an instant does this world endure. Only an instant does fear last. Only an instant does this world endure. 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 Only an instant does this world of fear endure. Only an instant does the world of fear endure. That means it only lasts an instant. That problem only lasts an instant. That problem will only last an instant. That situation they may be causing you any kind of fear, it will only last an instant. Tell yourself that the world of fear can only last an instant because the world of fear cannot endure. Only an instant does this world endure. Only an instant does this world endure. This is Earl Purdy. Check me out at www.earlpurdy.com and check out my classes on video and audio. Do you know only an instant is just an instant does this world endure? Only an instant that it looks like we could be in fear or hurt in any way endure. So let peace extend from my mind and my heart to yours. Hello, this is Earl Raj Purdy again, and I'm doing What is the World? What is the real 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 world? Do you know that the real world is a symbol like the rest of what perception offers, because everything perception offers is a symbol? Yet the real world stands for the opposite of the world you made. The real world stands for the opposite of the world you made. The real world stands for the opposite of the world you made. What that means is that usually the world is seen through eyes of fear. And so the world brings witnesses of terror to a person's mind. The real world cannot be perceived. You cannot see the real world. You cannot see the world of love. You cannot see the real world except through eyes forgiveness blesses. And we've already learned that forgiveness is correct perception. So you can't see a real world of love unless you're looking through eyes that have been blessed by correct perception. So a world that is seen through eyes that are seeing correctly see a world where terror is impossible and witnesses to fear cannot be found. So when you actually seeing correctly, when you actually seeing through your real mind, your loving mind, you will be able to tell, because you will be in a world that is impossible to be terrified. It will be a world that's it's impossible to be terrified. Check this out, mighty companion. And witnesses to fear cannot be found. So when you're in the real world, you don't see any witnesses to fear. Do you know that the real world holds a counterpart for each unhappy thought reflected in your world? Which means the real world holds a sure correction for the sights of fear and sounds of battle which your world contains. The real world gives a sure correction for the sights of fear and the sounds of battle which your world contains. Do you know that the real world shows a world seen through quiet eyes, and quiet eyes come from a mind at peace? So when you're using and seeing the real, when you're seeing the real world, you're seeing a different world. You're seeing a world through quiet eyes. You're seeing a world through a mind at peace. In other words, there's nothing but rest when you're seeing through the real world. You just feel peace. When you're seeing through your real eyes, when you're seeing correctly, you don't see anything but peace. There's nothing but rest there. That means when you're seeing correctly, when you finally achieve the state of mind that the Course in Miracles is teaching, there are no cries of pain. You don't hear about pain. There are no sorrows. For nothing in the real world remains outside forgiveness. So nothing in the real world remains outside of correct perception. And the Course in Miracles defines correct perception and forgiveness is the same thing. And when you're in the real world, the sights are gentle. So you're seeing gentle sights when you're seeing the real world. In other words, do you know that only happy sights and sounds can reach the mind that has forgiven itself, the mind that is seeing itself correctly? When your mind is seeing itself correctly, the only thing that can reach you is happy sights and happy sounds. So that's how you can tell when you're actually seeing correctly. When you're actually seeing correctly, the only thing that can reach your perception is happy sights and sounds. So what need has such a mind that is seen with love What need has such a man for thoughts of death, thoughts of attack, thoughts of murder? What can a loving man perceive surrounding it but safety, love, and joy? What can a man that is perceiving correctly perceive that it would choose to be condemned? And what is there that it would judge against? The world that a forgiving man sees, the world that a correctly perceiving man sees, the world that a healed man sees, arises from a mind at peace within itself. So the loving, peaceful world that we keep hearing about, that world that's full of love and safety and joy, and we're not dealing with all the stuff that we're dealing with here sometimes that seems to cause us fear. We're not going to see that self until we're perceiving correctly. So when you're perceiving correctly, you have a mind at peace within itself, and then that mind that's at peace within itself then sees this loving world, this peaceful world, this abundant world. So no danger lurks in anything that a correctly perceiving mind sees. For the real world is kind, and only kindness does it look upon. No danger lurks in anything it sees, for it is kind, and only kindness does the mind that has forgiven itself look upon. Are you aware? Are you aware that the real world is a symbol? That the real world is the symbol that the dream of being sinful and the dream of being guilty is over. In other words, you are the child of God and you are no longer asleep. You can tell when you're no longer asleep because you will be in that totally safe world. And your eyes will be open. And do you know that your waking eyes will perceive the sure reflection of God's love? When you're seeing correctly, all you see is a reflection of the love of the universe. The certain promise that you are redeemed. You just see the certain promise that you are healed, that you are whole, that you are innocent. When you see the real world that there's only total love and safety in, it signifies the end of time, because its perception, the perception of a really, truly safe, loving world, makes time purposeless, because the purpose of time is to learn how to see correctly. So when you're finally doing it, time has no more purpose. Are you aware that the Holy Spirit, your loving right mind, that voice for God in you, has no need of time? When time has served God's purpose, there is no need for time. After time has served the Holy Spirit's purpose, now the Holy Spirit, your loving right mind, your true self, your voice for God waits but that one instant more. You're waiting just that one instant more for God to take God's final step, and time has disappeared, taking perception with it as it goes, and leaving but the truth to be itself. It's time for the truth to be itself. It's time for that good stuff we've been reading and hearing about and studying to be itself. That instant where love is the only thing we experience and safety is the only thing we experience, that is our goal. Because an instant of total peace and a totally quiet, peaceful mind, that contains the memory of God. That contains the memory of what created you. A peaceful, instant, loving instant that we're not tripping about something. That instant contains the memory of God. And as we look upon a world forgiven, as we look upon a world that we're finally looking at correctly and in peace, it is the Holy Spirit who calls to us and comes to take us home. It is God that calls to us and comes to us to take us home, reminding us of our identity, which our own forgiveness, our own correct perception has restored to us. Your correct perception restores your true identity as an unbelievably loving being to you. So ask yourself, what is the world? What is the real world? Not the world of fear, not the world of separation, not the world that we are afraid of things in, not the world that it looks like we could be hurt and sometimes have some joyful, pleasurable experiences that seem like they might not last. So even the pleasurable experiences become a source of fear because we become afraid we might lose that pleasurable experience. That's not the real world. The real world is a world that you're looking at not through your ego, not through your fear, not through your sense of separation. So the thought is, what is the real world?